Mr. Denton on Doomsday was a Twilight Zone Western. It's a story about a rummy, a town bully, and a traveling salesman who sees disturbing drama and wonders if sales will pick up. This was an episode written by Rod Serling and directed by Alan Reisner. It had lessons about how guns don't solve our problems, or do they? At least there's a lesson about how drinking shouldn't solve our problems, or do they? Let's follow the adventures of Mr. Denton from the bottle to the gun. As always, my analysis isn't quite embraced by enthusiasts of the series. The alternative theories mentioned within may cause anxiety, rage, and disbelief, but that's why you're here, I hope. Kindly consider leaving a like, share, or subscribe if you enjoyed this video. Now, let's join Mr. Denton on Doomsday. Al Denton is the town drunk, best known for his nickname, Rummy. He earned it. There's nothing he wouldn't do for a drop. He pays with his dignity and a lovely singing voice.
How dry I am, nobody knows.
It's quite tragic for a man once known for his quick draw is reduced to killing bottles. But a mysterious stranger comes into town, doesn't quite know what to make of the strange expressions of humanity. Just as we think Denton is little more than horse manure in the middle of the street, comes his equalizer in the form of a 6-shooting spirit. It fits nicely in the palm of his hand and can deliver redemption in a flash. Denton has his sympathizers. Miss Corset, also known as Miss Smith, whose occupation is never quite established, gives exposition how Denton was once pretty good with his gun. The gun in his hand brings unwanted attention from his tormentor, wonderfully played by Martin Landau, who won't stop taunting Denton into a quick draw. But he suddenly shows fantastic, if not terribly lucky shots. Al Denton's killer instinct crawls back, and he earns his title of Mr. Denton. Just don't call him Rummy. Denton explains to Miss Smith why he drinks. It's to kill the pain of the dead he had killed. He realizes his rediscovered skills comes with an old price. Challengers who want to prove they're better at the draw than he. Every fast and fancy man will ride into town after him. Denton comes to grips with his fate. He decides it's time for a good shave, because he wants to look proper when he dies. No sooner can he enjoy that shave and a hot cup of coffee comes a new challenger, who will ride into town the next night and demands to meet Denton on high 10 o'clock. Denton realizes that he's not the competitor he once was. Shaky hands, loose aim, his will disappearing. He considers skipping town, but as fate would have it, the traveling peddler hangs outside his door, making Denton's plan to escape unseen elusive. Denton approaches the peddler, who introduces himself as Henry J. Fate. He derides Denton for cursing his gun and implores him to use it. Henry J. Fate offers Denton one of his concoctions in a bottle, a potion, an elixir, something to help him give him that speed and accuracy. Denton discovers the potion of the fast gun not only works, but guaranteed to last only 10 seconds. Denton becomes a believer, accepts the elixir as a gift. All his peddler asks in return is to remember the night Fate stepped in. 9:59. And Charlie's saloon is on pins and needles. All his customers and the ladies gawk at Al Denton as they wait one more minute. 10 o'clock. And Pete Grant strolls into town and steps into the saloon. Grant and Denton exchange words before Denton turns away and takes his elixir. With only 10 seconds to work with, he has no time to waste. Turning to face his opponent, Denton sees Grant drink out of a tiny little bottle that resembles too much like his. Grant also sees Denton's empty bottle lying on the bar. Both know the other's little secret given to him by Henry J. Fate. No words can resolve this, only a fast pull of a trigger. Each simultaneously shoots the gun out of each other's hands. It's a draw, but both Denton and Grant won't be using their shooting hands to pull a trigger any longer. Their quick draw days are over. Denton congratulates Grant for his blessing, having a debilitating injury and losing full motion of his hand for the rest of his life. However, Denton can look forward to having a long life with grandchildren, with some help from Miss Corset, we assume. The long-established theme and the most embraced is one of redemption. The Twilight Zone Companion by Mark Scott Sickery mentioned this was important to Rod Serling, who wrote the screenplay, and we see a lot of that in Al Denton, who experienced an accelerated version of his own hero's journey. We see Denton introduced to his ordinary world, his call to adventure, which he refuses at first, before he meets a mentor who offers him supernatural aid. He rises to the challenge, and both experiences death and rebirth, finally becomes a different person who shares this gift with his adversary. This takes me to other themes I see, or better put, themes I don't see. You might be looking for a moral about how guns destroy a man, but here, in front of our eyes, it brought Denton out of the proverbial gutter. It was his antidote to alcohol. The longer his grip to his six-shooter, the more sober he became. While he thought about walking away from his life as a gunslinger, Henry Fate lectured him to use his gun, not to lose it, because an opportunity to get yourself killed should never be passed up. While you might be thinking there's a story about the evils of alcohol, but we see the perils, joy, and benefits from drinking. No sooner was it depicted as fuel for indignity, it was shared as part of a celebration. It provided means of support to Charlie, his saloon, not to mention the girls who worked there, and drinking was literally Denton's salvation. Which takes us to the enigmatic Henry J. Fate. Lack of better words, Mr. Fate was a snake oil salesman, making big promises while hawking potions and elixirs that solve your problems. And what cliché ingredient is snake oil known made out of? You guessed it, alcohol. When you watch the episode again, look how his name on his sign, Fate, is obfuscated, covered up early. It's blocked by either his big head or Miss Liz's body. His name is revealed from afar, just as Denton begins his new adventures. Even later in the episode, Fate covers his name with his oversized hat before confessing who or what he is. Fate is more of a Badinsky. He gave Denton his gun, provided supernatural skills early, before getting him hooked on his elixir. Then there's an untold backstory with Grant, whose character arc is more ambiguous. But perhaps Fate had a much larger plan in mind. As he exits town, he leaves it with one less drunk, one less bully, and the idea of the quick draw left in the dustbin of history. I have a soft spot for Twilight Zone westerns. It's probably my first experience seeing science fiction or fantasy set in the American Wild West. When I first revisited watching the series again, I really enjoyed this episode. But it wasn't necessarily the story I thought it was after repeated viewings. And there are mixed messages about guns, redemption by trigger, and the dependence on drinking your problems away. For example, I thought Denton's super scary skills came to life, returned unconsciously. But it turns out this was fate playing a trick on everyone, as we see soon later Denton's shaky hands and more shaky confidence. I question how the viewers were supposed to interpret the gun's appearance. Was the gun lying in the street, and a clever editing technique revealed the prop like a magician pulling a curtain? Or did it literally materialize in front of our eyes? It's likely the latter, meaning fate was manipulating Denton, Grant, and the audience alike. There's so much a half-hour episode can do in that time. While it showed Denton's character arc very efficiently, it went sideways with Denton's motivations. First, he planned to continue his life, being challenged, and look forward to death. Then, after discovering he didn't have the skills anymore, guaranteeing giving him what he wanted, he thinks about skipping town. But Denton is convinced to take the elixir because either he doesn't want to die, which he achieves by leaving, or he's ready to kill, which is achieved by staying. I'm also kind of put off by the town's nonchalant attitude of attempted homicide right before their eyes, but I'm being overly critical. I really bought into Dan Durier's performance about a past his prime gunslinger prepared to take back his infamy. While I was critical about conflicting messages how guns and alcohol shouldn't mix, the idea that the Twilight Zone used a gun to solve a drinking problem and drinking to solve a gun problem is pretty deep and elevates it a notch. I give this 3 dimensions out of 5. It plays a couple tropes, one first scene but I may have overlooked in one for the angels that is of a supernatural character, and the other, tag it a western. This is Mr. GSNG saying, a snake oil salesman selling you something that actually works, it can happen, but only in the Twilight Zone. Check out other videos on the channel. Thanks for watching.